The letter arrived on a Tuesday, slipped under Elena's apartment door like a thief in the night. It was her aunt's handwriting, elegant looping cursive that always felt like a reprimand, and the words inside cracked her world open. "I've written your story, Elena. It's out there now in bookstores for the world to see." Her coming out, her love for Sophia, her private pain and triumph, all laid bare in a book she hadn't known existed. Elena's hands trembled as she clutched the letter, her heart hammering so loud it drowned out the hum of Portland's rain-soaked streets outside her window. She was 25, a graphic designer who'd spent years carving out a quiet life, and now her most intimate truth was a bestseller, without her consent. Sophia, her girlfriend, was still at work, oblivious to the storm about to hit. Elena sank onto the couch, the letter crumpling in her fist, and felt the weight of betrayal settle into her bones. She'd grown up under Aunt Clara's roof in a small Oregon town after her parents died in a car accident when she was 9. Clara, a celebrated author, had been her guardian, her mentor, her tether to the world. But Clara was also a woman who saw stories as currency, emotions as raw material. Elena had always known this, but she never imagined her own heart would become Clara's next manuscript. The book Unveiled Hearts was climbing the charts, lauded for its raw, authentic portrayal of a young lesbian's journey. Reviewers called it brave. Elena called it theft. Her phone buzzed. Sophia's name lit up the screen. "Hey love, grabbing coffee after my shift. Want anything?" Her voice was warm, steady, the anchor Elena clung to in moments like this. But how could she explain this? How could she tell Sophia, who'd fought her own battles to live openly, that their love story was now a public spectacle? Elena's throat tightened. "Just come home soon," she managed, her voice cracking. Sophia arrived an hour later, her leather jacket damp from the drizzle, her dark eyes scanning Elena's face with that uncanny ability to sense when something was wrong. At 26, Sophia was a barista by day and a poet by night, her words sharp and fearless, much like her. She dropped her bag and knelt in front of Elena, taking her hands. "What happened?" she asked, her voice low, urgent. Elena handed her the letter. Sophia read it, her jaw tightening with every line. "She didn't ask you," Sophia said, not a question but a blade. "She didn't even tell you." The silence that followed was heavy, charged with the kind of anger that simmers before it explodes. Sophia stood, pacing the small living room, her boots leaving faint wet marks on the hardwood. "This is your life, Elena. Ours. How dare she?" Elena's mind spiraled back to the summer they'd met, 2 years ago, at a queer poetry slam in a dimly lit Portland bar. Sophia had been on stage, her voice weaving stories of love and resistance, her short black hair catching the spotlight. Elena, sketching in the corner, had been captivated, not just by the words, but by the fire in Sophia's eyes. They'd talked until dawn, their connection instant, electric. Coming out had been Elena's hardest step, a confession she'd shared with Clara in a tear-soaked moment, trusting her aunt to hold it sacred. Now that trust was shattered. "We need to confront her," Sophia said, stopping her pacing. Her hands were fists, but her eyes softened when they met Elena's. "You don't have to do this alone." Elena nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. Clara wasn't just family. She was a literary giant, a woman who wielded influence like a weapon. Confronting her meant stepping into a battle Elena wasn't sure she could win. The next morning they drove to Clara's estate in the Oregon countryside, a sprawling house surrounded by fir trees and memories. Elena's stomach churned as they pulled into the gravel driveway. Clara greeted them at the door, her silver hair swept into a bun, her smile warm but guarded. "Elena, darling," she said, pulling her into a hug. "And Sophia, always a pleasure." Her tone was polished, as if she hadn't just upended their lives. Inside, the house smelled of lavender and old books, a scent that once comforted Elena but now felt suffocating. They sat in the study, Clara behind her oak desk, manuscripts stacked neatly beside her. "I read the letter," Elena began, her voice shaking but resolute. "Why didn't you ask me?" Clara's smile faltered, but only for a moment. "I wanted to honor your journey, Elena. Your story, it's universal. It's helping people." Her words were smooth, practiced, the kind of rhetoric that filled her book tours. Elena's chest tightened. This wasn't about helping. It was about control. Sophia leaned forward, her voice cutting through the air. You didn't honor her. You exploited her. You took something private and made it yours. Clara's eyes narrowed, but she didn't interrupt. Do you know what it's like to have your life dissected by strangers? To have your love story turned into someone else's profit? Clara leaned back, folding her hands. I raised Elena. I gave her a home, a future. This book is my gift to her. A legacy. Elena's heart twisted. A legacy built on betrayal wasn't a gift. It was a wound. She stood, her voice steady now. You had no right. I trusted you and you used me. The room fell silent. Clara's face was unreadable, but her fingers twitched, betraying her composure. I'll make this right, she said finally, but her tone lacked conviction. As Elena and Sophia left, the weight of the confrontation lingered, but so did a spark of defiance. This was their story and they would reclaim it. The drive back to Portland was quiet, the hum of the car engine filling the space where words failed. Elena stared out the window, the blur of trees and rain mirroring the chaos in her mind. Sophia's hand rested on her thigh, a steady warmth that kept her grounded. We'll figure this out, Sophia said, her voice soft but fierce. She doesn't get to define us. Back at their apartment, Elena couldn't sit still. She paced, her sketchbook untouched on the table, her usual refuge from stress now useless. The internet was already buzzing with reviews of Unveiled Hearts. Bloggers praised its heart-wrenching authenticity, unaware that the heart in question was hers, stolen and sold. She found a Reddit thread where readers speculated about the anonymous protagonist, some calling her brave, others debating if she was even real. Each comment felt like a needle in her skin. Sophia, scrolling through her phone, cursed under her breath. There's a book signing tomorrow at Powell's, she said, tossing the phone onto the couch. Clara's going to be there, reading excerpts. Your excerpts? Elena froze. The thought of Clara standing in front of a crowd, reciting her private moments, made her stomach lurch. She imagined strangers dissecting her love for Sophia, judging it, claiming it as their own inspiration. We should go, Sophia said, her eyes blazing. We show up, we call her out. Publicly. Elena hesitated. Confronting Clara in private had been hard enough. Doing it in front of an audience felt like walking into a lion's den. But Sophia's resolve was contagious, and the idea of staying silent felt worse. Okay, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. Let's do it. The next evening Powell's Books was packed, the air thick with the scent of paper and anticipation. Clara stood at a podium, her voice carrying over the crowd as she read from Unveiled Hearts. She found love in the quiet moments, in the way her partner's laughter lit up the darkest nights Elena's breath caught. Those were her words, her memories of Sophia, twisted into Clara's prose. Sophia squeezed her hand, her grip tight enough to bruise. When the reading ended, the crowd applauded, and Clara opened the floor for questions. Elena's heart pounded as she stood, her legs trembling. I'm the woman in your book, she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. The room went silent. Clara's smile froze, her eyes locking onto Elena's. You wrote my story, my coming out, my relationship, without my permission. Why? Gasps rippled through the crowd. Clara's composure cracked, her hands gripping the podium. This is a work of fiction, she said, her voice tight. Inspired by many stories, not just one. But the lie was thin, and the audience sensed it. Whispers spread, phones came out, recording. Sophia stood beside Elena, her presence a shield. It's not fiction, Sophia said. It's our life. You profited off her pain. The room erupted in murmurs. Clara tried to steer the conversation back, promising to discuss inspiration later, but the damage was done. Elena felt a strange mix of relief and exposure, like she'd ripped off a bandage but left the wound raw. As they left the bookstore, strangers approached, some offering support, others asking invasive questions. Elena realized this was only the beginning. Back home, they found an email from Clara's publisher, offering a private meeting to address concerns. Sophia scoffed. They're scared of bad press. But Elena saw an opportunity. If we meet them, we can demand control. Maybe get the book pulled. Sophia nodded, but her eyes were wary. Just don't let them charm you. They're not on our side. The meeting was set for the following week in Seattle, at the publisher's sleek office. Elena spent the days preparing, reading every review, every post, every comment about Unveiled Hearts. Some readers called it empowering. Others criticized its exploitative undertones, unaware how right they were. She felt torn. Part of her hated the book, but part of her couldn't deny its impact. It was her story after all, even if it was stolen. Sophia, meanwhile, channeled her anger into poetry, scribbling lines about betrayal and resilience. One night, she read a piece to Elena. "They took our light, but we'll burn brighter still." The words ignited something in Elena, a determination to reclaim her narrative. She started sketching again, pouring her emotions into bold lines and vibrant colors, each stroke a step toward healing. As the meeting approached, Elena felt a flicker of hope. Maybe they could turn this violation into something powerful. But deep down, she knew Clara wouldn't back down easily. The fight was far from over. The Seattle skyline loomed through the publisher's floor-to-ceiling windows, a cold, gray backdrop to the tension in the room. Elena and Sophia sat across from Clara and two executives, their tailored suits a stark contrast to Sophia's ripped jeans and Elena's thrift store sweater. The head editor, a woman named Margaret with sharp eyes and a sharper smile, opened the meeting. "We understand your concerns," she said, her tone practiced. "We want to make this right." Elena didn't buy it. The publisher had made millions off Unveiled Hearts, and this meeting felt like damage control, not remorse. Clara sat silently, her face a mask of calm, but her fingers drummed lightly on the table. A tell Elena recognized from childhood. She was nervous. "Good." Sophia spoke first, her voice steady but laced with steel. "You published a book about Elena's life without her consent. That's not just unethical, it's personal. What are you going to do about it?" Margaret leaned forward, her smile unwavering. "We're prepared to offer compensation, a percentage of the royalties. And we'd love to involve Elena in future editions, perhaps a foreword." Elena's stomach twisted. They thought they could buy her silence. "I don't want your money," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "I want the book pulled from shelves. You don't get to profit off my life." Clara finally spoke, her voice soft but cutting. "Elena, you're being emotional. This book is bigger than you. It's helping people. Young women like you struggling to come out." The words hit like a slap. Elena remembered the nights she cried in Clara's arms, confessing her fear of being rejected, her love for Sophia. Those moments weren't bigger than her. They were her. "You betrayed me," Elena said, her voice breaking. "You were supposed to protect me, not use me." Margaret interjected, offering a public apology and a vague promise to review their process. But Sophia wasn't having it. "You're dodging the issue. You didn't just publish a book. You violated her privacy. You think an apology fixes that." The executives exchanged glances, clearly unprepared for Sophia's fire. Clara, however, leaned forward, her eyes locking onto Elena's. "I made you who you are," she said. "This book is my gift to you." Elena stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "You don't get to decide what my story is worth." She walked out, Sophia at her side, leaving the executives scrambling to salvage the meeting. In the elevator, Sophia pulled Elena into a hug, her leather jacket creaking softly. "You were incredible," she whispered. Elena clung to her, tears burning her eyes. She'd stood up to Clara, but the victory felt hollow. Back in Portland, the story was spreading. A local queer activist group had picked up the Reddit thread from the book signing, and Unveiled Truth was trending on X. Supporters rallied around Elena, calling for a boycott of Clara's work, while others defended the book's inspirational message. The divide was stark, and Elena felt caught in the middle. She wanted justice, not a culture war. Sophia suggested they take control of the narrative. "Let's tell your story ourselves," she said one night, curled up on their couch. "A blog, a podcast, something raw and real. Not Clara's polished version." Elena hesitated. She'd spent so long hiding, protecting her privacy. But maybe Sophia was right, maybe the only way to heal was to speak. They started a blog, Our Truth, posting anonymously at first. Elena wrote about her coming out, her love for Sophia, and the betrayal of having her story stolen. Sophia added poems, each one a dagger of truth. The response was overwhelming, hundreds of comments, emails, messages from others who'd felt silenced or exploited. Elena read every one, her heart swelling with a strange mix of pain and purpose. But Clara wasn't done. A week after the meeting, she appeared on a national talk show, framing Unveiled Hearts as a tribute to her niece's courage. She never mentioned Elena by name, but the implication was clear. The internet exploded with some praising Clara's selfless act and others calling her out for manipulation. Elena watched the interview, her hands shaking. Clara was rewriting the narrative, painting herself as the hero. "We need to go bigger," Sophia said, slamming her laptop shut. "She's not going to stop unless we make her." Elena nodded, a plan forming. They'd been reactive, defensive. It was time to fight back on their terms. Elena and Sophia spent days strategizing. Their apartment a war room of laptops, notebooks, and coffee mugs. The plan was bold. A public event, a live reading of their own words, hosted by the same queer activist group that had amplified their story. They'd call it Reclaiming Our Truth. A night of poetry, art, and raw honesty. Elena would share her sketches, Sophia her poems, and together they'd tell the world what Clara had taken. The event was set for a community center in Portland's Pearl District, a space known for its vibrant queer scene. Word spread fast, and soon they had a venue packed with supporters, allies, and curious strangers. Elena's nerves were electric as she stood backstage, her sketchbook clutched to her chest. Sophia, ever steady, kissed her forehead. "We're doing this for us," she said. "And for everyone else who's been silenced." The lights dimmed and Sophia took the stage first, her voice a beacon in the crowded room. She read a poem about love as resistance, her words weaving their story with unflinching honesty. "They stole our secrets, but we'll sing them louder." The crowd erupted, their cheers a wave of validation. Elena stepped up next, her voice trembling as she spoke about her coming out, her love for Sophia, and the betrayal that had fractured her trust. She held up a sketch, a watercolor of two women holding hands against a stormy sea, their faces radiant with defiance. The audience gasped, then applauded, the sound washing over her like a tide. The event went viral. Clips of Sophia's poetry and Elena's art flooded X, with Reclaiming Our Truth overtaking Unveiled Truth. People shared their own stories of betrayal and resilience, turning the night into a movement. Elena felt a shift. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was a voice. But Clara fought back. A week later, she announced a new edition of Unveiled Hearts, with a foreword inspired by recent events. The audacity stunned Elena. Clara was doubling down, using their resistance to fuel her narrative. Sophia was livid, but Elena felt something else. Clarity. "She's scared," Elena said. "She's losing control of the story." They decided to escalate. With the activist group's help, they contacted a lawyer who specialized in privacy rights. The lawyer, a fierce woman named Rachel, believed they had a case. Not just for emotional distress, but for violation of privacy and unauthorized use of Elena's likeness. "It won't be easy," Rachel warned. "Clara's powerful, and the publisher has deep pockets. But we can fight." The legal battle began quietly, with cease and desist letters and demands for the book's withdrawal. The publisher pushed back, claiming the book was fictionalized and protected by free speech. But public opinion was shifting. Articles in queer media outlets dissected Clara's actions, and even mainstream publications began questioning her ethics. Elena and Sophia's blog grew, their story resonating with thousands. They started a podcast too, interviewing others whose stories had been exploited by family, media, or corporations. One night, Elena received a call from Clara. Her aunt's voice was softer than usual, almost pleading. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said. "I thought I was giving you a voice." Elena's heart ached, but she didn't waver. "You took my voice," she said. "Now I'm taking it back." Clara was silent for a long moment before hanging up. Elena cried after, not for Clara, but for the family she'd once believed in. The legal fight drained them, emotionally and financially. Sophia took extra shifts at the coffee shop, while Elena freelanced late into the night. But the community rallied, crowdfunding campaigns covered legal fees, and strangers sent letters of support. Elena framed one, from a teenage girl who'd come out to her parents after reading their blog. "You made me feel like I could be myself." As the court date approached, Elena and Sophia prepared for the fight of their lives. They knew Clara wouldn't back down, but neither would they. Their love, their truth was worth more than any book deal. And they were ready to prove it. The courtroom in downtown Portland was cold, its wood-paneled walls amplifying every sound, the shuffle of papers, the judge's gavel, Elena's heartbeat. She sat beside Sophia, their hands clasped under the table, Rachel at their side. Across the room, Clara sat with her legal team, her face composed but her eyes avoiding Elena's. The trial was small, a civil case, but to Elena it felt like the world was watching. Rachel presented their case with precision. Clara had violated Elena's privacy, profiting off her personal story without consent. She showed emails, letters, and even Clara's own notes, proving the book was based on Elena's life. The publisher's defense leaned on creative license, arguing that Unveiled Hearts was fiction inspired by universal themes. But Elena's testimony changed everything. She spoke of her childhood under Clara's care, her coming out, her love for Sophia, all laid bare without her permission. Her voice broke, but she didn't stop. The courtroom was silent, the weight of her words undeniable. Sophia testified next, her poet's voice steady but raw. She described the violation of seeing their relationship turned into a commodity, the pain of strangers dissecting their love. "This wasn't just a book," she said. "It was our life, and it was stolen." The judge, a stern woman with kind eyes, listened intently, her pen moving across her notepad. Clara's testimony was polished, her words a carefully crafted narrative of inspiration and good intentions. But under Rachel's cross-examination, cracks appeared. Clara admitted she hadn't asked Elena's permission, claiming she assumed her niece would be proud. The judge's frown deepened, and Elena felt a flicker of hope. The trial lasted 3 days, each one a blur of arguments and emotions. On the final day, the judge ruled in Elena's favor. Unveiled Hearts was to be pulled from shelves, and Elena was awarded damages, not enough to erase the pain, but enough to feel like justice. Clara was ordered to issue a public apology, a small victory that felt monumental. As the gavel fell, Sophia pulled Elena into a hug, whispering, "We did it." But the real healing came later. Elena and Sophia used the damages to fund a nonprofit, Our Stories, dedicated to amplifying queer voices on their own terms. Their blog and podcast grew, becoming a platform for others to share their truths without fear of exploitation. Elena's art flourished, her sketches now exhibited in local galleries, each piece a testament to resilience. Sophia published her first poetry collection, dedicated to Elena, with lines that captured their journey. "We built our home in the ashes of their theft." Clara's apology came in a stilted press release, but she never reached out directly. Elena learned to let go, not of the pain, but of the need for Clara's approval. She had Sophia, their community, and a purpose bigger than any book. One evening they stood on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, the same one Elena had sketched so many times. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink. Sophia took Elena's hand, her voice soft. "We're free now," she said. Elena nodded, tears in her eyes. "We always were." They kissed, the wind carrying their laughter over the waves. Their story wasn't Clara's anymore. It was theirs, and they'd written the ending themselves. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.